I had one, I guess, area of concern, and that was related to our middle housing code. We, as a planning commission, were asked to make a recommendation for the code. I think we took some uh, straw man polls on particular issues in that code set, and we had some cases where we had unanimous opinion about things. And I left that particular planning commission meeting with a very clear understanding that we were going to have our recommendation preserved and presented to council.
Yep.
And when I went to kind of go read the packet that was going to council, which was, sent out to us, but, or I looked at it maybe on a Friday and the council meeting was on a Monday, I was pretty surprised that some of our recommendations were not contained, um, as I thought, in the staff report or in the code set that was being presented to council. I did kind of raise that issue to Dustin. We talked about it, uh, but I thought it was concerning enough based upon where we left the meeting that I wanted us to just have a discussion about it.
Hmm.
And I think one meeting when we were when I had the minutes in front of me, when we were just able to discuss, Dustin wasn't there. He was actually presenting our findings to council on that same day. So I figured we should just hold off and have a discussion while we were all in the room together so that we at least have a clear understanding about process going forward. And I don't know that we need to like revisit the past, but I just feel like it would be good for us to be all on the same page, both the commission and the staff, so that we know how our voice is going to be taken forward.
Okay. And just to kind of try and put some color around what you're trying to describe, there were a couple of things that you had raised around sort of parking in the front of a house or maybe sidewalk setbacks. So there were a couple of things that came up that I think you were a bit concerned about how it was documented and interpreted, and then our message taking forward to council, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, the code set's passed and this is kind of water under the bridge, but I'm feeling the reason I wanted to even have this discussion was
Yeah.
so that we understood process going forward for places where we're the recommending body.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that staff opinion can be different than the commission opinion, but I want to I think that we need to understand how our opinion gets officially communicated. And in a case where we have a staff opinion that is different from a planning commission opinion, I think it might warrant staff at least highlighting that for us. And
Yeah.
also, uh, maybe giving the commission the opportunity to send a representative to, I guess, present our position. Because
Okay.
there was a spot where we had some pretty unanimous positions on some
Yeah.
of those. And I don't want to say that didn't happen, because I think, in Dustin's staff report, and I saw some of the presentation, um, but I think it would be clear for us to kind of just have a clear process going forward.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me, and I know there was a few things that were going on. I think it would be good for us to kind of clearly identify, okay, so here are all of the issues. Here are the issues that are somewhat, there's some contention around those issues that need to be weighed in on, right? There's a lot of issues that were just fine. There's some issues that we need to weigh in on. And I think we should identify moving forward those that we are weighing in on, that we do have a poll or a straw man poll that basically says, the planning commission wants to do one thing or the other thing, or they're split. We did a bit of that in these meeting minutes from from back in February, but there's some areas where I think we could have probably been more clear around. This is the suggestion from the planning commission. and then the staff can do what they're going to do, but at least that our message is documented. So I appreciate that comment. Any other, to that end, any other comments from the commission?
This is Megan. I will say a couple of
Yep.
remarks about that day. Number one, I will fully admit that the item of contention, the parking, whether it be in the front or the back,
Mm-hmm.
I have since, I just want to give Dustin a little credit here. Even though I was against mandating it in the back, since I have read the Missing Middle Housing book by Daniel Paralek, which I kick myself that we weren't forced to read that before this. I understand why. I understand why he was, or why it was proposed that way. So I want to give him credit. But I do wish that the commission's opinion on that was represented. And I also feel like we were stuck between a rock and a hard place, because this is my second point, that I think it's very tough when you have a planning commission and a city council meeting on the same night, especially when there are when both topics or the topic that is being discussed at city council is one that we passed on to them. So we couldn't even participate in the city council meeting if we wanted to, to correct that. And then third, you'll never hear me say this because I am Miss Speed Queen. I like things done fast, but I felt like the both Missing Middle discussions and the TSP discussions, which was that night that we couldn't be at that council meeting, were, it felt a little rushed to me, and that's the only time you'll ever hear me say that. So I know that's a little bit more elaborative than what Bill initially brought up, but it was all those three things circling in my head that day. Okay.
But at this point, Dustin, it is water under the bridge, right? Because we, the Planning Commission staff, have presented to City Council, and they have what they have, correct?
Yeah, I think it's important though to note, we really want to be mindful when we as staff and we have departures from the recommendation. I always want to make sure that we never bury that intentionally or unintentionally and advertise that dispute, because we're all providing input to the city council for their policy decision. And so the more opportunities they have to hear different voices, really the more informed decision they can make. So I think that's it's important to advertise the differences. I think that's from my perspective. And I think I tried to do that in their summary sheet when they get, hundreds of pages of comments on the front. We want to know where Planning Commission staff depart. And there was actually both of that for the TSP as well as middle housing, where we had departures from different inputs. And I think that's pretty normal. I do want to make sure that Planning Commission doesn't feel like their recommendations are buried. They may not be the recommendation, but that goes forward, but they need to be represented. And I want to make sure that I'm really mindful and careful of that. So I appreciate those comments. And I also want to make sure as we go through, if there's an impasse and you don't get to something, that really goes as a non-recommendation a lot of times. I can't really sort that out. So as we do legislative and we don't get to a finding, we got to be mindful of what we're sending forward and making sure that we get consensus on something rather than a lack of consensus and call it a draw. That I don't think that's particularly helpful for for folks. So that's something I want to help facilitate, do, and make sure that we don't end up with draws on things or a lack of consensus. I think we should
Right.
try to get to something. So.
All right, point taken.